This is the Culturosity podcast, brought to you by Geekality, your source for all things geek. Powered by Blue Square Group's Record Phone Calls app. I'm your host, Joshua David Sage. It's episode 3, and today we have writer extraordinaire Fred Van Lente. And as always, Deadpool love child, Ed Pool, the archer to my Armstrong.
Hi, Josh. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I have you on conference call now with my collaborator, Ed, so if you're ready, we can get this interview started.
Hey, give me 5 seconds.
Sure. Putting some last-minute touches on the script?
On a tweet, even more important.
Oh, nice. The tweet, yes.
About to start interview with Culturosity.
Tweet send. There you go. Let me just point out that I'm using a phone call recording app on the iPhone, which has a 45-minute limit. So if we near that number, I have to take a break for a few seconds in order to reload it so we have another 45 to work with, okay?
Sounds good. Okay, it is tweeted. I am ready.
Awesome. We're all set to go. So I want to say your name is pronounced Lente, Fred Van Lente. Am I correct?
No. Well, in Amsterdam it'd be Van Lente. Here in America, my family's always pronounced it Lente, Van Lente. So people often think we're Italian, but we are in fact Dutch.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
So we're here with Fred Van Lente. Lente.
Correct.
Okay. So that's a great name actually, Fred Van Lente. Sounds like you should be playing for Black Sabbath or something. I like that.
Yeah, it's there's a small town in Holland called Lente. In fact, for years we thought it just meant and maybe the older derivations it means of Lent, the Catholic holiday, Lent, spring, all that. But I guess there is a Lente or Lenta in Holland, so it's even more literal than that. It just means our town is, our ancestors go back to that small town.
Nice.
Is that something that you ever thought of changing, maybe using a pen name? Because I know a lot of people seem to like to do that.
My full name is Frederick Jan Van Lente. And I am named after the first Van Lente to cross the Atlantic and come to America right before the Civil War. And he settled in a small town called Holland, Michigan. Now, my father's name is also Frederick Van Lente, but he doesn't have a middle name, so they called me Jan. So growing up in New Jersey, where they eventually ended up being called Jan, around second grade, I finally put my foot down because I was transferring because they shut my school down and they moved all the kids to another school. I'm like, screw, when your options are Jan or Fred, as the two things that kids are going to call you, you don't have a whole lot to work with. But I insisted on Fred, and they finally caved. Nice. I'm now about 40 years old, and my older relatives finally now start calling me Fred instead of Jan. It took them that long. But when I first graduated, my very first comics work was for Prime, which is a sort of Shazam-esque rip-off superhero from a company called Malibu Studios, and I was sort of going through a bit of a identity crisis, and I just thought Jan was so I'm actually credited as Jan Van Lente in my first ever Malibu/Marvel comic.
That was you?
It came out in like 1995 or something like that.
Yeah, I actually like Prime. I thought when Marvel bought it, they should have just started it up again. I like Prime.
Yeah, unfortunately, my understanding is that at this point in the 90s in Marvel's history, this was when they were owned by Ron Perlman, the corporate raider, and they were just going through this orgy of acquisitions. So they bought Malibu to acquire their computer coloring studio, believe it or not, back when that was an exotic thing.
Yeah.
Now I'm not sure. Now people, you say that and they look at you like you're from Mars. And so they got all these characters, except that the legal agreements with Scott Rosenberg, the guy they got Malibu from, are just so. My understanding is those legal agreements are so arcane and give so much money to the original Malibu people, you will never see those characters again.
Oh, wow.
Disney will never bring them out of the vault. They are entombed forever, unless I guess anything can happen. Who thought Valiant would come back? But I don't know if there are Malibu fans out there with the same fervent love for Valiant that the Valiant fans do. But
I don't think so. Valiant fans are pretty strong in their opinions and their love for Valiant.
They scrounged millions of dollars together to extract the Malibu characters from Disney. Disney now owns the Malibu characters. They own Star Wars. They own all the cross-gen characters, of course. And they own Marvel. DreamWorks, of course, now owns all of the Gold Key characters, so that's why you will never see Turok or Magnus Robot Fighter or Solar or...
That's a shame. Oh, man, that's a bunch
in Valiant.
That's a bunch of jazz right to the childhood right there.
Yeah, I thought there was a Turok movie in sort of in talks or something.
Well, Turok is a great concept, and Turok, of course, of those three, actually predates Gold Key. He was a Fiction House character, so he's even a generation before the Gold Key stuff, which was kind of contemporaneous with Marvel, the original, Fantastic Four Marvel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fascinating. It's kind of a bummer. I think Turok is awesome. He's probably my favorite of all the Valiant characters.
So you're a real comic book history buff in here, huh?
I am. In fact, if your readers want to, they can pick up the Comic Book History of Comics, written by me, drawn by Brian Dunleavy, currently available at Amazon or your fine comic book stores.
Nice.
MyComicShop.com would have it too. Yeah, nice.
Without a doubt.
Professor Van Lent. There we go, Van Lent. There we go.
Real quick, before I forget, since I have to mention Deadpool at least once every podcast, you wrote Deadpool before, right?
I did. I wrote a few random Deadpool stories, yeah.
Those were the ones that went backwards or whatever, when they started numbering backwards or whatever it was, team-ups or something?
Right. I wrote the first issue of Deadpool Team-Up, where he teamed up with Incredible Hercules, which was a series I was writing with Greg Pak at the time. Nice.
Sorry about that. I have to mention it at least once.
Sure.
His last name is actually Poole, so...
Oh, there you go. Well, so you have a certain...
He's a love child of Deadpool at some point. It just happened.
There you go. And your name rhymes with Deadpool then.
Yep, Deadpool. Yep.
So you actually wrote Deadpool for Marvel Zombies, didn't you, or at least a version of?
I did. I have the dubious distinction of creating Headpool.
Yes,
nice.
Headpool.
Somewhat by accident, and with the great artist Kev Walker in Marvel Zombies 3, and before I knew it, he had his own series.
Did you ever think that would happen when you wrote Headpool?
No.
No.
In fact, I could say with total confidence, no. It never occurred to me. And I was surprised what happened was it was a gag. Basically, I wanted to do a gag where Jennifer Kale dropped zombie Deadpool into a swamp buggy and thus pureed him into a fine mist. Because that's the first super zombie the heroes encounter in Marvel Zombies number 3 or 3.1.
Nice.
But so it was just a throwaway gag, and then there was a gag later that he was just a head sitting in the spy headquarters saying, pull my finger and making jokes about being a bodiless head. But the fan reaction was pretty overwhelming, and so when they greenlit us to do a sequel, I was like, well, I got to bring him back. So he was sort of the main MacGuffin of Marvel Zombies 4, which was sort of my favorite of all the zombie books I did because I got to sort of deal with all these 70s Marvel characters that I love, like Damon Hellstrom and Morbius and Jack Russell and Kale and all those great characters. And so the gag is that he teams up with Simon Garth, who is the original zombie in the Marvel Universe. He's just a voodoo zombie, and they go on this insane adventure and they end up escaping.
Sounds like you had a good time writing it.
Deadpool ends up escaping at the end.
Yeah. He lives on beyond your story. That's got to be flattering, right?
Exactly. And then they decided to do... Well, it is flattering, but by the same token, it's like, it's just kind of funny when there are so many Wolverine books and there's like so many Spider-Man books and there's so many like literally like the clone of Spider-Man has his own book, which I find kind of fascinating. Like, you dismissively say something, it's just a clone of Spider-Man. Well, Scarlet Spider is literally a clone of Spider-Man. But I kid the lovers of 90s comics.
Nice.
Yeah.
We didn't ask you.
That was the biggest question we got when I did Spider-Man was Ben Reilly.
Well,
we didn't ask you. How'd you make out with the storm, with the hurricane, super hurricane?
Oh, thanks for asking. Nothing really to report. Just lost some cable /phone/internet for a while, but nothing really. I've got to stop mentioning that because every time I say it, it just sounds dumb.
So we're not talking to you via CB radio or anything, right? Do you have power back now?
Yeah. I went down to Staten Island to help out with the Occupy Sandy bunch. Was involved with a great group called Pedal Brooklyn, and they organized this trip, and we went down and helped people clear out their houses and stuff. And it's pretty devastated down there.
Yeah.
Wow, that was cool of you to do that.
Well, if you're lucky enough to be secure, and certainly in my case, I don't have any kids, for example, so I don't have that constraint. You just sort of feel like I feel uncomfortable not helping out in one way or another, and I just sort of showed up to this bike group at Williamsburg, and they were like, "We're going to Staten Island," and I was like, "Okay." And just seeing how bad some of those folks had, it was pretty.
So you didn't have any issues? I mean, don't you?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, Time Warner went out, which it's just the communications went out. So I didn't have a phone for a day, which was for me. But I had cell phones, so you can connect to the internet and stuff. So it really was nothing meant worth. Again, I feel I'm embarrassed just to bring it up, as if it has anything to do with any of the other people that actually went through real hardship. I suffered no real hardship at all.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I was without power for a few days, and I was like, when I got the power back after having to stay with family in Jersey, I was all gung-ho to put up pictures of all the damage that I saw on Twitter. And then I saw the news, and I was like, oh, my God, let me pull back and not tweet this because it's really not a big deal what I went through.
Yeah, I mean, I know a good friend of my sister's, her home was wiped out. J.K. Woodward, the great artist of Star Trek and Doctor Who, his home was wiped out in Staten Island. I just saw him over the weekend, and we both did a show in Maine. And just lots of people having real serious hardships. And what's terrible is that this comes right at the beginning of winter, so with the hurricane, I mean, if you recall, with the weather the previous weekend, I had a Halloween party, and the weather was beautiful, and then, a couple days later, the hurricane, and then the cold weather comes with it, so it's sort of a real one-two punch there.
But don't you have a company in Brooklyn with Ryan Dunleavy called Evil Twin Comics?
Yep, I do, but we were outside the evacuation zone.
Ah, okay, wow.
I mean, we're on pretty high ground. We're both very near the Gowanus Canal, which did flood, and Red Hook, which flooded quite badly. But that's like a 10-minute walk from here. But a 10-minute walk and high ground makes all the difference, and we were fine.
So, Evil Twin Comics, a little bit lucky in there. Okay. Why don't you tell us about it? What are you guys exactly? What kind of books you're publishing right now through Evil Twin?
Well, Evil Twin is named after Ryan's the artist. Ryan did a strip in college at Syracuse University called Evil Twin. That's where the name of the company comes from. It was created. We won something called a Xeric Grant in 2005, which is a self-publishing grant given out by Peter Laird, who co-created the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yep.
Oh.
And so we got a grant to publish a book called Action Philosophers, which was a humorous history of philosophy in comic book form. And that sort of proved to be successful beyond our wildest dreams. And so once we wrapped up that series after 9 issues, we did a 6-issue series called Comic Book Comics, which was sort of taking the same humorous take at history but applying it to comic book history. And then that became the book I mentioned at the opening, Comic Book History of Comics, which we decided to have IDW publish because, quite honestly, we're shitty publishers and lazy. And there's only 2 of us in the company, and we feel like we'd be doing a lot. We could be making a lot more money if we partnered with somebody who had better distribution and a little more publishing savvy than we do. And so far, it's paid great dividends, and IDW's been great, and they're about to sell out. They sold out of the first printing of that book the week before it came out, and they're about to sell the second printing, and we just have a terrific relationship with them.
Wow.
Speaking of IDW, I've been told that you're going to be taking over G.I. Joe for them, right?
You have been told, and the person who told you was not lying.
I have to pay my informant a little better next time. Then he did good work. Okay. Two bags of weed instead of one. Yeah. So tell us about it. What exactly? I mean, I really haven't been into G.I. Joe since the Marvel days, and I know Ed hasn't either. So what can you tell us to get us excited about your run on G.I. Joe?
Well, sort of the twist that we're putting on the concept, and sort of to me, if you're going to relaunch the book with a new number one, you need to do something very significant, kind of world-shaking. And so our big change to the franchise is they've been outed, sort of like WikiLeaks style. They were formerly a covert team, but Cobra outed them, and so now the G.I. Joe's sort of gone public. I mean, I would almost compare them to a superhero team. They now have a headquarters in Governor's Island, and now they're going in very public adventures, and the Pentagon is using them as sort of a PR recruitment tool. And the battle with Cobra has very much taken place, is very much relocated here to the United States proper, and that's something that I kind of really wanted to do, felt kind of strongly about, was to sort of take them out of these kind of, because the book had been sort of carrying on the shadow war in various obscure locations around the world, and I thought, well, let's put it smack dab in the United States.
Nice.
And also, I was also a huge fan of the G.I. Joe comics in the 80s, and what I loved was the story they did about Springfield, about the town that Cobra took over, and our first arc, which is called Homefront, is kind of a modern-day take on that, except it sort of combines that story with something like Black Hawk Down. So
nice.
Joe's trapped behind enemy lines in America, surrounded by hundreds of kill-crazy Cobra sympathizers.
That's what I was going to ask you. What can you relate to G.I. Joe as far as movie? What would you compare it to, like the tone of the book? You just said Black Hawk Down. Is there anything else, or?
Sure. I mean, I've been doing a lot of research on a different project especially about the Special Forces. I mean, one of the, it's very hard for me to wrap my brain around G.I. Joe being Special Forces because, like, the Navy SEALs don't have a tank division for a very good reason. Like, they're supposed to be stealthy, so having, like, fighter jets and blowing shit up seems kind of a little over the top, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wanted to do things more about the kind of things that the modern military one has to deal with. I mean, Black Hawk Down, there was a great HBO series about the invasion of Iraq called Generation Kill. That's been a huge influence on me. The Unit, the CBS TV show, would be something else. I mean, this to me is sort of an updating of the old cartoon, but from the kids who saw the cartoon, now they've grown up, and now we're going to give them something a little more sophisticated. Nice. That's kind of my take on it.
How do you manage to deal with such a big cast like G.I. Joe tends to have?
It's hard. I mean, we've narrowed the number of Joes down to about 6 or 7 men and women, sort of plucked from various parts of Joe history. But it is hard. It's hard to give everybody that time to shine, but I think we're doing a pretty good job with it so far. I mean, one of the things, a lot of my stuff is known for being plot-driven. This I'm definitely trying to do more of a character-driven thing. And everybody has favorites. I love Shipwreck and CoverGirl, and Roadblock, Duke is a huge part. I'm literally in love with the Baroness. As far as I'm concerned, the entire book could be about the Baroness, eating breakfast, shopping online.
Snake Eyes has his own book, right?
Recording her phone messages, that kind of thing. Yes, Snake Eyes has his own book. Mike Costa does a wonderful series called Cobra that's about the Joes trying to infiltrate Cobra from the inside. Mm-hmm. That book will be relaunching with a new number one. The Joes will still have a special ops secret missions team, and Chuck Dixon is running their adventures in G.I. Joe. I believe it's called Special Missions. And I think what they're going to do is my G.I. Joe number one is the first one that premieres in February, followed by, I believe, Chuck's new number one in March, and then Mike's in April.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so G.I. Joe was coming out for the longest time through Devil's Due Publishing, and then they lost the rights to IDW, for those fans who don't know. How grateful are you that happened, in the sense that you no longer, you don't have to read through all of those arcs to get the continuity right.
You'd be surprised, dude. There's still a lot of IDW comics. I've had to read a lot of stuff. But the other thing you contend with, and it's the reception of the fans has been great, but you get a lot of like, what are you going to do something with Clutch? Are you going to do something with Law and Order? Are you going to do something with Windmill? Are you going to do something with everyone has their own personal favorite show. I can't even like Zartran has twin brothers, siblings. I've got to figure out who they are, and it's just really kind of like overwhelming. I mean, particularly when you franchise. When you think about it, the G.I. Joe franchise, the toy franchise, started in the '60s. I mean, the version that I'm writing about, the version we are all familiar with, was basically created by Larry Hama at Marvel in the early '80s.
Right.
But even the toy line was decades before that. So it's a lot of material to absorb. I'm not trying to complain, but it's been great. My favorites are, of course, Larry. Warren Ellis did a wonderful web cartoon. I always blank on the name because there have been so many G.I. Joe properties with our names. It's like the Matrix, it's Reloaded, and Renegades, and blah, blah, blah. Resolute, the G.I. Joe Resolute. If you can catch that on YouTube, it's awesome.
So, given all of the characters you have to work with, I'm wondering, does IDW give you any leeway as to who you can kill off and who you can't?
They do. I have a lot of leeway. I mean, one of the nice things is that we're all in agreement, and everything has to be cleared through Hasbro also, so it's not just IDW.
Oh.
I mean, there's something morally, I think, objectionable about doing a war book where nobody dies.
Yeah.
That just seems like you're selling people a bill of goods, and so G.I. Joe gets killed in our first issue. I'm not saying we're going to kill off everybody, It's almost like the opposite, people always complain, like, they killed off the Wasp, but they killed off the Atom, they killed, it's like this cheap superhero death. Well, if we don't kill people off, in G.I. Joe, that cheapens it to me even more,
It's going to be like the old cartoons where they just kept firing and nobody really got shot.
Exactly.
Well, right, or they have lasers or whatever. Now,
yeah.
these people are using bullets and grenades, there's going to be a high casualty rate. So we're going to be whacking people right and left.
That sounds great. That sounds great.
It's the kind of book where, it's the kind of book where I hope people don't know who's going to buy it, by which I mean die next, So hopefully there's some shocking stuff, but hopefully, my challenge is to make characters that people really care about and care about whether they get shot or not,
Yeah, that pretty much sells it for me right there. I like that. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, sounds good. Should we get into Valiant at all?
Yeah, you go ahead, Ed. You ask them about Archer and Armstrong. You're more into that than I am.
Do you mind telling us how they approach you, Valiant, to come work for them? They're kind of making a comeback now, right? Last couple of months they've been on fire.
Sorry, one more time?
Can you tell us how Valiant approached you? They're making a pretty huge comeback. I've heard the last couple of months have been pretty big for them.
Yeah. Well, they did not exist for many years. Two Valiant fans literally raised several $1 million and bought them out of bankruptcy, and then very slowly began building comics and Hollywood options. They've got Bloodshot and what's the other one?
Man of War?
Shadow Man.
Yeah, Exo Man of War, right?
Is Exo optioned also? Okay, well, I guess we have 3 then. No, I'm not sure Exo has been optioned yet. But I know Bloodshot and Shadow Man.
I've been waiting for like an Exo Man of War movie or something, man, for a long time. I remember the original.
Yeah. And obviously what Robert Venditti and Carrie Nord are doing are great. And it's been very exciting. I think success surprised everybody. I think their success surprised them. I'm certainly surprised that I'm very grateful, but I'm also surprised that people react so to Archer and Armstrong, which is very nice.
Well, yeah,
it's not a self-evidently commercial property.
No.
So you're working with your buddy Clayton Henry again. You guys did work on Incredible Hercules together.
Indeed.
But no Greg Top this time. What's up? He doesn't know anybody anymore? Can't get him on the phone?
Well, don't forget, Greg was, my exclusive ended before Greg, so Greg was a Marvel exclusive, so we couldn't use him.
Okay.
So it's not personal. We're still not using him, even though our exclusive ended. Don't get me wrong. I don't feel like, sharing my paycheck with somebody. But Greg and I are working on a book for another publisher, neither Marvel nor Valiant, so it's very exciting to get to continue to work with him as well.
Oh, that's good. So break down Archer and Armstrong for somebody who maybe never read it before. What's it about? I know it's a buddy book, but what can you say about it?
Well, Archer and Armstrong is a very unusual buddy comedy about a pair of mismatched conspiracy busters, two guys who go around the world looking into the secrets of the Vatican and the Freemasons on Wall Street, whom we call the 1%, and the mysteries of Tibet and why the Nazis were so obsessed with Tibet. That's in the issue that just came out last Wednesday. Armstrong is an immortal, at least claims to be an immortal, who has boozed and slept his way across the globe for 10,000 years. But he's very cynical, and so he kind of needs to be nudged along in heroism by his somewhat reluctant partner, Archer, who was raised by right-wing fundamentalist maniacs in a creationist theme park. And he is a lethal expert martial artist, but he's also he's the sweetest guy you've ever met. So he is a guy who can do anything but knows nothing. Armstrong is a guy who knows everything but doesn't want to do anything. So you see they kind of complement each other nicely.
Definitely. And this is a reboot, so how hard was it to make sure like the fans of the original are happy while also putting your own brand on it?
Well, there's two kinds of reboots. One is the one like G.I. Joe, where the thing has been going on for a very long time, and so people, when you announce it's being relaunched, some people don't react too well to that because they're like, I've already been reading the book and there's something wrong with it. Why are you relaunching it? Which is a perfectly understandable position to take. But there's something like Archer Armstrong, which really hasn't been around since like 1990. Since I was in college, this is 93, 94, something like that. So, so I think people are just happy it's back, and I think that what you always try to do whenever you are reviving or relaunching one of these older properties is you always try to forefront what is working and try to get to the essence of it while cutting out or updating stuff that isn't necessarily working. Okay. So that's definitely something, like Archer in the original Barry Windsor Smith Valiant series was a Hare Krishna, which is a religion I know nothing about. But I was raised Christian, so I can make fun of them all day long because I know what I'm talking about. I used to be very active in that church. We're poking fun at the 1%, obviously, and
Wall Street.
We're also making Wall Street, and we're also making fun of like the Da Vinci Code, all the Catholic stuff, and everybody likes Nazis getting punched in the face. In our second arc, which we bring back another Valiant character called the Eternal Warrior, we're going to be getting into a lot of like environmental satire with sort of the Koch brothers and the energy lobby's influence on politics in the world, so it's a very unusual book in that because the scope is so broad, it really is kind of about everything. Like whenever you get heavily into conspiracy theories, whenever you go down that rabbit hole, whether you're dealing with Fringe or X-Files or anything like that, you always end up getting these huge cosmological explanations for everything.
Yeah. There was actually a show I used to watch that was canceled. I think it was on Fox. It was called Vanished. That before it was canceled, they seemed to be delving into that too. A conspiracy having to do with the alignment of the planets and preparation for the end of the world. It's just something that, that's just something we all seem to connect to, the end of the world and how we deal with that.
Well, it's a philosophy, that's something the genre can deal with really well, that sort of philosophy of why are we here, where are we going, where does the world come from, will the world end, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's all very, on the one hand, it's very pretentious, but on the other hand, it's just something we think about all the time. It's just something that we're constantly compelled to think about as humans.
Right. So, I've never really been a fan of a lot of the Valiant comics, and I look at Archer and Armstrong, and Archer kind of looks like a Hawkeye in street clothes, and Armstrong kind of reminds me of Tom Bombadil from The Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem to kind of click with me, but then I'm going through it and listening to you talking about it, and all these big ideas about conspiracies and Messianic crypts underneath Wall Street and geomancers and immortal warriors, and I get it. It just sounds fantastic. It really does.
Well, thank you. People have been reacting really well to it. It's been very cool. We can't keep the first issue in print. It keeps selling out, so it's pretty awesome.
How long is the movie?
Not my department, fortunately.
Nice.
We got to get it done. Just put some weight on Hugh Jackman, and there you go, Armstrong, and just.
There you go.
That's half the cast right there. Why not?
Seth Rogen, I see, would make a good Armstrong.
Oh, Russell Crowe, he's already fat, so there we go. So, yeah, I like it. I'm looking at it and reading about it, and it really sounds really, really cool. It's something else, and I'm hitting myself because I missed out on it.
Well, you can get, if you're a Comixology guy, you can get Barry Windsor Smith's original run, which spanned about 2 years. What am I saying, about a little bit more than 1 year, on Comixology for a fairly good price, so that's a good thing.
Other than the Eternal Warrior, can you tease anything else about Young Cub in the Arc?
Well, not to spoil the end of the 4th issue, but something happens in the 4th issue that puts the Eternal Warrior on the trail of Archer Armstrong, and the Eternal Warrior wants to kill Archer. So the book may be called Armstrong after very shortly, because the Eternal Warrior always gets his man. And this sort of involves the Geomancer mythology and the fact that Gilead is the Eternal Warrior is also Armstrong's brother and also another immortal, and what their connection is in the shared secret of their immortality is sort of something that is something that we're going to explore as we go along through the book. And of course, long-time Valiant fans know that Archer Armstrong and Geomancer and Eternal Warrior also link into another book called Time Walker, which is about their other brother. So it's a whole family of immortals. That's a lot of fun.
Wow, the idea of big brothers that don't die, that just terrifies me. Gee.
I know, right?
That is not for me. So anyone who hasn't read it yet, just check out the solicitations on ValiantUniverse.com. Very well written solicitations, I should say, and great covers. And if you're not reading this book yet, after you check all that out, you're going to, because that's pretty much what got me.
Awesome. It's available at your local comic shop. It's also available through all sorts of online sources, including Comixology.
Yeah, mycomicshop.com.
You're a digital comics person.
You can pick them up, and they're 2 hard copies through mycomicshop.com. And if you're a trade guy, you can always get them through Amazon.com. So going back in time a little bit, I'm seeing here that you co-created Cowboys and Aliens, which was turned into a film recently.
Indeed.
So what can you tell me about how that came together, creating the comic book? I mean, I don't normally talk with people that have to create something with 2 other writers. How does that work?
In that particular instance, involuntarily. It was really the first job. It was the first paying gig I got in comics. I had done an indie science fiction comic called Tranquility that was optioned by this company called Platinum. And because of the science fiction connection, or so I assumed, they hired me to work on this property that was called Cowboys and Aliens. And I was like the 8th or 9th writer on the project. It had been floating around for a while. In fact, Scott Rosenberg, guy who owned Platinum Studios, is in fact the owner of the aforementioned Malibu Comics, who got all of his money when Marvel bought Malibu, and he got all the money for the computer coloring outfit. What happened there was he had published a comic called Men in Black while he was at Malibu. While you may not know that Men in Black started out as a comic, you certainly know it was made into an incredibly successful movie. And so that gave Rosenberg the idea that he should create comics as sort of a baseline to then launch movies out of. And the jewel in his crown, so to speak, was Cowboys and Aliens. So I did a script. This was in 2001. And then a few years later, and I'll always be grateful for Scott for giving me confidence in paying me. He's really the first person to pay me, first professional person to pay me to write comics. So, I was very grateful for that, but what I was less grateful for was that he then hired another guy named Andrew Foley, very nice guy, very talented writer, to completely redo my script, because my script was very, it had this sort of a similar tone, I would say, to Archer Armstrong, a little less satirical, but very much, I thought this would make a great kids movie. It was very sort of bouncy and fun. Just sort of the classic adventure movies that I love, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was funny when it needed to be funny and exciting when it needed to be exciting, and, so on and so forth. But they were like, no, we want a more serious movie. And so they did that, and then the book came out in 2006. They sold the movie rights. Robert Downey Jr. was originally attached to star. I believe he brought his director on Iron Man, Jon Favreau, involved. Then Downey left, Daniel Craig came on board, Harrison Ford came on board, blah, blah, blah. Steven Spielberg got involved. So the movie came out. I just saw the movie 2 days ago, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
What you think?
On HBO.
What you think?
It's a little sad. I mean, one of the things that I did when they brought me on board was they had a lot of what I thought were kind of silly elements, like for some reason they recessed this idea that the aliens came to Earth to mine.
Right.
They wanted gold, which seemed very odd to me. Because that, it's like you have one ship and a bunch of weird aliens, and also all the aliens were like H.R. Geiger, slothering feral aliens with a spaceship, and for some reason they want gold. None of it made any sense to me, and I was just like, so I kind of did my own thing with it. But what amused me was watching is they took all the shit that I took out and then put it right back in. And I actually live tweeted my viewing of Cowboys and Aliens. If you're interested, you should go to a website called Comics Alliance, where they didn't ask me first, but they took all of my tweets and put them all on one webpage. You can check that out if you want. But there's nothing about the process that didn't annoy me. From the fact they didn't publish the book for 5 years, from the fact they didn't consult me about anything, in fact they rewrote it without consulting me, to the fact that the only thing that I liked was that when the movie came out, they got destroyed by the Smurfs. It was a huge bomb. So I feel like my original impulse that it should be a family film was vindicated. But yeah.
Yeah, and for anyone who's listening, when you say family film, you do mean all ages, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. You're not talking about the Smurfs, which is just for kids. Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
I think the Smurfs was PG. I would be looking. You still have a PG-13 movie, I think, and have it be, and by family I mean more. Most Hollywood products you probably know is aimed at adolescents. You know what I mean? So it's got everything's got to be badass. Oh, you killed my family, aliens! I will stab you as a cowboy. It's just if you've seen the movie, it's really boring and self-important, and it's just kind of sad because all the actors in it are great, and I don't know what. And obviously Steven Spielberg knows how to make movies, and Jon Favreau knows how to make movies, and Ron Howard knows how to make movies, but this was.
It doesn't mean they know how to write a good movie.
Well, no one bats 1,000.
Yeah.
Bottom line. The best thing about it is Harrison Ford is actually doing acting. He's not phoning it in. But the whole thing is just misguided. Someone was like, let's really think about how 19th century Americans would deal with gold-hungry aliens crashing in their midst. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like your version better. Anything that kind of trying to connect with what Raiders of the Lost Ark or the Temple of Doom were, I'm all for.
Yeah.
The only thing I really remember from Cowboys and Aliens was that Olivia Wilde was naked at some point in the movie. That was about it.
Yeah, but but she's covered in flames. It's PG-13. You don't see anything.
No.
You might as well just pretend she's naked under her clothing, That's as much as you see, But no, she's very attractive. But she first shows up, and she's like this mysterious woman, and it looks like she's wearing jammies and a gun belt, and she just looks ridiculous. She's just wandering around, not everything has to be Deadwood, but it's like, come on.
Yeah, she's a gorgeous homeless gunslinger. That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Exactly. That's actually a perfect description of what she looked like in the movie.
Not the best experience.
Definitely not the best experience. And, God only knows what I would be feeling like if I had not, it was a total coincidence that I, got success elsewhere in the comics industry,
We're all grateful for that. So you've written some cool stuff. We're all grateful for that.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
What do you feel about the current state of the industry as far as shops struggling to stay open, digital sales? Do you have any thoughts about any of that?
Well, I think the outlook is much better than it has been for some time, and I think that we all have reason to be optimistic. I think that the huge success of a bunch of Image titles, particularly Walking Dead and Saga, I think the resurgence of Valiant, I think that the fact digital sales do keep increasing, but apparently we don't see I don't think you see attrition from the brick and mortar stores necessarily yet, which would be terrific and great, and make comics the one sort of exception to, music stores and Blockbuster and everything else going out of business, So
yeah.
I do think that at the moment things are looking up rather than down. I do think that people still complain that there's too many variant covers and there's too many, superheroes and there's not enough diversity, and I think while those are fair points, I think that, you now have, you still have a greater breadth of material to choose from if you're a comics reader than at any point, particularly if you then include webcomics, and other non-comic shop stuff. I mean, I think this is the best time, in America at least, to be a comics reader. We're finally beginning to see the kind of diversity of genre and demographics that Europe, particularly France and Japan, have seen for years. And I think that's awesome.
Well,
I really think there's no better time to be a comics creator and a comics reader. Speaking as both.
Well, we have to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we are back. For those who don't know why I always do that, it's because I'm using Blue Square Group's Record Phone Calls app, which has a 45-minute time limit. So once that runs out, I have to call a specific number and merge all of our calls together, and it'll reload the whole thing so I can record everything. That's why I often pause in between podcasts. So going back to everything, I'm reading a sample of your script that you have for Marvel Zombies Halloween.
Okay,
and
cool.
I'm always interested in how people write. Do they use the very, very loose Marvel style, or do they use more of a very complex descriptions like Alan Moore does? And from what I'm reading here, you kind of go between the two. In page 1, you have descriptions of pulling back and into shots, aerial shots, and then in the end, you keep it very, very loose with just 1 or 2 lines about, Kitty smiles or Kitty nods at jack-o'-lantern across the room. How would you describe yourself as a writer?
Dude, you just spoiled the ending. No.
Oh, spoiler.
Yeah, the identity of the main character of Marvel Zombies Halloween is kept cunningly from the reader until the very end. But anyway. So what your question is sorry, what's the question?
How do you describe yourself as a writer? Do you write loose scripts or dense scripts? I mean, how do you really guide the illustrator you work with?
Oh, about 6'1", and no. The way I look at it is, if you're doing a traditional comic book with, 1 to 6 panels per page on average, each page is basically a paragraph, and each panel is a sentence. So I try to keep. It doesn't always work out this way, but to me, it's a good goal to have. Is I try to keep it 1 sentence of description per panel, and I try to keep it 1 page of script per page of comic book. Now, when you're setting up, when you're world building, when you're describing the design of characters for the first time, that's not always, sometimes you need a paragraph or even 2. But to me, what's important is not burying the artist in a blizzard of description. And if you just like in good writing, if you limit yourself to a sentence per panel, you've got a subject, you've got a verb, and sometimes you've got an object. It's very simple, And so I've been very fortunate. Artists say they really like the script style I use, and that's sort of why I posted on my website in the first place. It was in reaction to a Reddit Ask Me Anything I did a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, to me, and I should actually single out for praise my editor on Cowboys and Aliens, who's a guy by the name of Lee Nordling, who actually I had sort of been developing the style in the first place, but I kind of solidified it doing Cowboys and Aliens and some of the other projects I did for Platinum Studios. And so really he was the guy who said, you're going to make things as clear as possible for the artist. You've got to, nothing's more annoying if you're a comic book artist to have laid out a page and then realize there's more panels on the other page of script, which you didn't realize until you turn the page. So I always, make it clear when, comics pages end or when there's more description for that page, further on in the script. So, I mean, the goal for a script assistant in the way a screenplay is formatted is so an artist can just glance at it and go, okay, this is there's X number of panels on this page. This panel has more dialogue. This panel is supposed to be bigger. That kind of stuff. It's just and then once you have that foundation, the artist can improvise and improve on the description how he or she sees fit.
I see you actually provide some links for reference photos, right? For your collaborators.
Oh, all the time. Yeah, all sorts of things. Yeah, I mean, if I don't know and if I can't tell people what to draw, how can I expect to get it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That must help a lot. I see why they like to work with you. For anyone who doesn't know, you can see that sample script in fredvanlente.com. Just look for the post from October 23rd of this year. It'll be right there in big letters.
Or you can click on the comics link, and it's at the top there.
There we go. Excellent. Yeah, it's I like that. I like reading people's scripts and see how they do things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Final Draft, the screenplay format's popular, but I mean, I don't know. I majored in film, and I also write screenplays, so it causes my brain I don't like it. I prefer to take it. I tried it for a while. Greg Pak tried to get me to do it. Well, I shouldn't say he tried to get me to do it. He did it, and so I was kind of like, well, I'll try it. And it's because he hates Microsoft Word, so maybe we'll use Final Draft, which is a screenwriting word application. And I finally rebelled. I was like, I'm not doing this. I got cranky.
Yeah.
But he took it in good humor.
No, I like the style you use. It reminds me a lot of the sample script that Dark Horse has on their website.
Oh, is that right?
Submissions. Yeah, it does. I like it. I
got that. I mean, Lee Nordling had a huge contribution to it, but it's primarily based on the script that the great late Steve Gerber uploaded to CompuServe in the 80s, and I'm dating myself. Through CompuServe references, dial-up modem. But it was for an unpublished Howard the Duck story that Marvel shit-canned for whatever reason, and so he uploaded the scripts, and I stole his format. It's like so if you look at the dialogue on the Marvel Zombie script, the lines are all numbered, and that's kind of an archaic thing. That's when editors kind of went through and did ballooning. I mean, some publishers still do ballooning a lot of times. People don't. I see it as a necessary step, but I kind of do it just so when you're on the phone with your editor and you're like, which line? Line number 7. Oh, okay,
That makes sense. I like that.
Just make the line.
So, is there anything else you want to ask yet?
Yeah, any special projects, anything else you have coming up, or anything, fans could meet you or anything like that?
Not really. My con schedule's done for the year, and I haven't really set anything next year. Working on a bunch of stuff that I haven't really announced yet. I would say follow me on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, I'm just Fred Van Lente. That's where all my, that's where most of my announcements wind up. And and December 6th, I still can't believe they've done this. It's like the 7th year they've done it. CBR and their blog, Comic Should Be Good, are doing Fred Van Lente Day, which is a day full of posts about me.
Oh, wow.
And my work. So it sort of started as a gag in 2004, and it or 2005? I guess it was 2005. I don't remember. It's going to be the 8th year? I think it was 2004. Anyway, Brian Cronin at Comics Should Be Good is the evil mastermind of that, and so if you are a comics buyer, comic book resources fan, that'll be happening.
That sounds cool, man. Thanks for giving us your time. Anything else, Cash?
Thank you very much for having me.
What was that? I said thanks for him for giving us his time. Anything else you want to ask him before he leaves us?
Oh, you lost me there because I heard you say that, and then it sounded like you were munching on something. You eating?
No, I don't eat.
Okay, you don't eat. I wanted to ask because I grew up with movies like The Ten Commandments by Cecil B. DeMille and Spielberg's Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom. So I'm really into mythology, and I'm wondering why Hercules from Marvel never hit it as big as a character with that kind of history should. And I'm looking at your run on The Incredible Hercules, and again, it was just 30 issues. When are they bringing that character back? You know.
Well, I'm no longer involved with him, so I don't know. I know he guest starred in Avengers Academy a bit. I love the character. Although to be honest with you, I didn't know anything about him, and I wasn't a fan until I got the job to write the book, or at least co-write it with Greg. And but yeah, I don't know. Hercules. Don't forget. Unlike Thor, Hercules is a public domain character. So
right.
Not Disney can't and Marvel can't own Hercules. There's not a huge corporate motivation for them to really push him is a big deal. So that's, I think, part of the problem. Thor, it's a slightly different story just because he's so embedded in the DNA of Marvel, and he's a more, at least relative to Hercules, a more obscure mythological character.
Right.
Who knows? They seem to be producing approximately 316 Avengers books. So you got to think there's room for Hercules on, someone just out of desperation is going to put him on there at some point.
Don't forget all of the X-Men books.
Why not, right? Since they got
old X-Men, new X-Men, yeah, all that. Have they collected your run on that?
I am doing a book about Hercules, about the myth of Hercules, for a great British publisher called Osprey, and that is a new project. I'm not really announcing. I mentioned it before, but it's not for the comics market. It's a prose book.
Oh. Have they collected your run on the Incredible Hercules? Actually,
not
I'm looking at it right now on Amazon.
Not in a single volume. You can get the Herc, the follow-up series, or as I like to call it, the aftermash to Incredible Hercules MASH. That you can get as a single book. The original run, you can get it. You get almost the whole thing in hardcover, but no, it's not. It's not an omnibus. Perhaps we need to get that letter writing campaign started so they collect it all in one thing.
I actually like the trade volumes. I can see them right here. Volumes, Smash of the Titans against the World. What can you say to kind of sell fans that haven't read it yet to pick up the book? Especially now that it's all collected, you don't have to wait months for a new issue. You can just pick it up all right now.
Well, Incredible Hercules is kind of a sequel to the old Greek myths, and basically it's about Hercules, shockingly, the Greek demigod running around and having adventures in the modern-day Marvel Universe and training his replacement, who turns out to be, much to everyone's surprise, including his own, snarky teen genius Amadeus Cho. And this all spun out of the World War Hulk event, and that they were started as renegades running from S.H.I.E.L.D. in the wake of supporting the Hulk in his war against Earth, but then quickly spirals into a full-blown conflict with Hera and Ares, Hercules' half-brother who hates his guts and is a member of the Avengers at the time, and all of your favorites, culminating in a storyline called Chaos War. So it's from the first one's against the world, the last one's Chaos War. So it's 7. Shit, I think it's 7. 7 books altogether. The reading order is actually on my website on the checklist link. It's when I just as a kid growing up reading, all the Vertigo stuff and Grant Morrison and stuff, it was fun to take an obscure character and kind of, I guess, revolutionize him or make him make his title something people were paying attention to, and so that was sort of a one off my comics bucket list.
That was almost like a buddy book too, right? Him and Cho together.
Yeah. Incredible Hercules is why they thought of me for Archer and Armstrong. Although Warren Simons, the editor, had never read it. What he liked that I did was called Taskmaster, which was another Marvel miniseries that I did. That people really respond well to.
Cool. Do you ever appreciate some of the great covers that a lot of your work seems to have, the cover artists that work on it?
Oh, of course, without a doubt.
I'm looking at Volume 3 for Incredible Hercules, Love and War. What a great cover. It looks like it's the hand of God coming down to crush Hercules.
Yeah, well, that's the great, the other guy known for doing Hercules at Marvel, Bob Layton, to just bring our conversation full circle, was of course one of the main creators behind Valiant, and co-created X-O Man of War and Archer and Armstrong and, all these great characters.
Oh, it's like that game, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Everything connects to Bob Layton.
Exactly. or the comic industry is just really small.
Yes, too small.
Probably the same. Probably the both.
It's a small comic world. Mr. Van Lente, thank you so much for joining us. You were great.
My thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. And, send me a link, and I'll promote the show when it comes out.
We absolutely will. Good luck with Archer and Armstrong. I'm going to be sure to pick that up first chance I get.
Awesome.
And, let us know what happens with G.I. Joe. I've never really been a fan of that, but I'm going to give it a try because you're on it.
Thank you very much. Number 1 in February.
Yo, Joe.
Yeah.
Cool. Exactly. Take care, guys.
Yeah,
All right.
take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And there we have it. Wow, he was a lot of fun to talk to, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's cool. Cool guy. He's got a lot of stuff on his plate coming up with that G.I. Joe.
Yeah. Did you check out that article I told you about?
Yeah. Yeah, I looked it over. It looks like a mess.
I know,
mess
right?
at Warner Brothers.
Yeah, wow, yeah. For those who don't know what we're talking about here, it's an article in the LA Times that recently came out about a power struggle at the top of Warner Brothers. The massive entertainment company that seems to have its hand in everything. Apparently, the head honcho at Warner Brothers is WB Chief Executive Jeff Bewkes. And there seems to be an issue as to who's going to replace him when he steps down at the end of next year. It's, what was it? WB Television Group President Bruce Rosenblum, Home Entertainment Group President Kevin Fujihara, and Motion Pictures Group President Jeff Robinoff. All vying to be a head honcho, right? Yep.
And the last guy you mentioned is the guy behind all their movie mistakes, right? All their movie mess-ups.
Yeah, that's sad. They make it a point to mention that he was responsible for Jonah Hex, and that's a blood. Did you ever see that movie, Jonah Hex?
I rented it. It's very forgettable. Very bad.
The only thing I can remember about it was it obviously had a couple of very good actors in it.
Josh Brolin played Jonah Hex.
Right. He's a good actor. And you had Michael Fassbender playing the villain Burke. And for those who remember him, he's Magneto in the latest X-Men movie.
Yep.
And he's just such a talented actor. You don't realize that he's I believe he's German, but he just seems to fake the accent so well. You lose sight of the fact that he's actually German. He doesn't sound it. He's a very, very good actor. That's the only highlight. If you're a fan of good acting, watch it just to see Michael Fassbender work as a villain. He does a great job. And unfortunately, his performance is wasted in that movie. Yeah,
if you can watch it for free, please don't pay for it. Just
watch it for free. Watch it for free. And there's an issue about who's going to take over in the future. And these three people are supposed to be working together, but according to the article, they seem to be trying to undercut each other at every turn, which, according to the article, is making it difficult for DC to get their films off the ground.
Well, yeah, sure. Everybody has different ideas, and nobody knows who the boss is going to be. I mean, imagine that's your job. Your boss is leaving in the year. You don't know who the boss is. I mean, nothing's really going to get done. It's almost like a lame duck session, in the government over at DC. I mean, Warner Brothers, I should say.
Yes, and it's a problem that's made more glaring by the fact that, Marvel Comics has Thor, has Iron Man, has Captain America, has the Avengers. They can start doing Daredevil movies now. They're rumored to be doing a film about Ant-Man. And DC has pretty much been stuck with 3 really cool Batman movies, and the underperforming Watchmen, and the debacle that was Green Lantern and Jonah Hex.
Yeah.
So it's not looking good for Robinoff right now. It's not.
Yeah, he might as well just give it up. You ain't gonna be the boss.
And for those who are listening in and just think, oh, who cares? Who cares who's in charge? Well, the article goes on to mention that, DC Entertainment President Diane Nelson is someone who hasn't renegotiated her contract with Warner Brothers yet because she's worried about what's going to happen with ownership. Who's going to be the new guy in charge, right? She's waiting on that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm hoping the struggle for power continues because they're kind of linking Diane Nelson to all of the big changes at DC.
She's responsible for the reduction of vertical titles, Wildstorm being chained up, and the controversial Before Watchmen line that just launched a little while ago?
Yeah, for anyone who heard our previous podcast, and I unceremoniously just put all the blame on Jim Lee. You know, I basically just tied him up, put the rope around his neck, and hit that lever for the trapdoor to open on his feet. I'm sorry for that. Apparently, there's just more to it than just, Jimmy doesn't know how to run anything. Because, wow, I'm actually starting to dislike this woman. If she's really responsible for all of the New 52 stuff and scrapping all the history that DC has.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's maybe it's better if the power struggle continues and, at least until she walks and ruins someone else's publishing line, so they can get someone who's more in tune with the comic industry and what the fans really want. So you can go back to, great DC Comics again.
The one good thing about a power struggle is usually whoever wins is the strongest. So if whoever wins becomes the boss and he knows what he's doing, has strong vision, it might look good for DC. But, we don't know. We'll have to see. They only have a year to figure it out. He's out of a year, right?
Yeah, he's out at the end of the year, next year. What I was worried about is, with Robinov, even though he's had failures in adapting DC Comics properties for film, he's someone that kind of seems to have that interest in DC entertainment because he runs it. The comic books, the movies, he's connected with all that. If someone who takes over Warner Brothers isn't really that fascinated with the comic book side of things, is that going to hurt the publisher or help it? That he's not going to get him away and more people who are a part of the comic industry can be able to run it without too much interference from the higher ups? That's my question.
I don't know. I don't know how much they interfere. I don't really know. We'll have to see, I guess. I think, I don't think Disney really affects Marvel as far as the comics, right? It's run like a separate entity almost?
I don't know. Marvel kind of sucked before Disney got there. They still suck after Disney bought it. I haven't gotten my Crossing comics back yet, so I'm not seeing any upside in the Disney Marvel merger. I'm not seeing any upside in that yet, so I don't know. I guess we're going to have to see. At least Image and companies like IDW are still putting out quality comic books.
Yeah, and Valiant's coming back. If all these small companies come back, maybe the big two have to shape up. More competition, readers are buying less books and stuff. You got to put out more quality titles instead of just more titles.
Right. My hope, though, is that they get people who really understand comic books to run the publishing side of things. Don't just try to shape everything up to relate to the movie, and which is kind of what the Marvel is doing now, right? Since they cast what's his name, Samuel Snakes on a Plane Jackson, playing Nick Fury. Haven't they pretty much turned every single Nick Fury in comic books to look like him now? They all look like Samuel Jackson now in comic books, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, that kind of is suckage right there. You just ignore all that history and just go with what the movies are doing. So that's my worry with DC. The wrong guy comes into power, the same thing is going to happen. I
don't know. I'm just happy Avengers finally came out.
Yeah, pretty soon Robin's going to look like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yeah, I'm a fan of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but I think the movies and the comic books should be really separate in that sense. That the comic books are what they are, and you have to try to make the movies come as close to that material as possible, not the other way around.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, but
we're not in charge.
Unfortunately, no, we're not in charge. I haven't won the Powerball yet. No. I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, what would be the one movie you can make in all the comics? Any comic character, unlimited budget. You could just do whatever you want.
Wow, the one movie that I want to make. Wow. Let me think about that.
Sorry, man. Sorry to hit you with that like that.
Aside from creator-owned stuff that I would want to see my own things become, my own creation turn into a movie.
Why is it gonna come back to you?
What?
Why you gotta bring it to you? No, a known property.
Yeah, a known property.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'd kind of want to stay away from Image a little bit for now. I think you want to go with something that's iconic that you grew up with. And while Image was around when I was like 12 years old or 11, I wanted to work on something that was there when I was just a baby, just starting to read. So for me, I guess the holy grail would have to be would have to be finding a way to make a legitimate comic book centric Batman. None of that stupid low grade Iron Man armor, but the real Batman costume, the gritty nature of Batman, the fact that Batman is not just going to go out there and beat people up. He's a detective. He's going to hunt them down. He's a more originally he was a modern take of what Sherlock Holmes used to be. He used to be that intelligent. You don't see any of that in the movies.
The world's greatest detective, right?
Yeah, the world's greatest detective. People build the gadgets for him in the movies, and he goes out with a whole new gadget and finds somebody and beats them up. That's all he is. That's not really the essence of Batman as a character. So to make a Batman that's true to the comic book, that's what I would love to do. And I would love to do that with the director who did that, that demo reel of Batman Dead End. I think his name is Sandy Colera. And, he's great with makeup effects, and he did that movie, and I know it's not a lot, but it's enough where if it was up to me and I had an unlimited budget, I go get Sandy Colera and write a screenplay with him and go with his version of Batman. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, go check out ColeraStudios.com. That's COLLORA Studios.com, and just click on where it says Batman Dead End, and you'll get a high resolution video of that short he did. And it's just the way Batman should be. It should be based on the comic books. As great as Nolan's films were, they weren't really Batman. They were Nolan's Batman. Like before that, it was Tim Burton's Batman. It wasn't really our Batman. I want to make our Batman.
I saw a funny interview with Kevin Smith where he said something about Burton ripping off an idea of his, and Burton said something like, I never read a comic. I don't read comics. And Kevin Smith said, yeah, I know. I saw your Batman. That explains the whole thing. He thinks he's too good to read comics, so how could he make the movie,
I know. Yeah, he just it's not our Batman. I mean, it doesn't mean they're bad movies. Michael Keaton was very cool as Batman. Christian Bale was very cool as Batman, but it's just not our Batman.
It's all we had. Yeah, it was cool at the time. I mean, it's not cool anymore. When it came out, it was pretty, the first two were pretty awesome, but then they went overboard with it. You got Bat Nipples, you got Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Freeze, and Hollywood went crazy with it. But the first two were pretty good. It's just, they're not real faithful, but I mean, that's all we had. But yeah, I get your point. I mean, Batman's a complicated character to show off facets of Batman. Cool.
Yeah, that would be my dream project, being able to do with Batman what United Artists used to do with James Bond, which now Sony is, which is, throughout decades, they released like 15 movies. If I could have the opportunity to spend, that part of my life just doing Batman movies for that long and be able to develop a story where you can go from him being, the guy that learns to deal with his repressed rage and the loss of his family and channeling it into being a hero, to going to the point where he has the sidekicks and one of them gets killed by the Joker. To be able to pull off the Killing Joke on film as a part of a long series of Batman movies, that's just the ultimate for me. That would be great.
Nice.
Why should James Bond be the only one that gets like 20 movies? Come on.
I don't know.
Yeah, because the material is there to have that kind of long-running franchise with Batman. It's just that every guy that comes in says, okay, I just want to do a trilogy.
Yeah.
And they let him do whatever they want with it, and it becomes so different from everything that you can't really continue it. You have to just start with another trilogy and then another trilogy, and they just repeat the same stories. Oh, just fight the Joker. Just keep fighting the Joker. It's okay. You keep fighting Two-Face. That's fine. Yeah, he's got more villains than just the Joker and Two-Face.
Yeah. Yep. So who would you like to see in a Batman movie? Villain-wise.
That's probably never going to happen, though. Realistically, they probably never will let me do that. So I guess as a consolation prize, I'd settle for Batman Beyond film. That I think I could get away with.
Batman Beyond.
You never saw that animated series?
I know. Are you crazy? Yeah, I know Batman Beyond.
Man, you better, yeah.
What, are you crazy? No, actually, I'm really a big fan of the costume. In Arkham City, I played that costume, the Batman Beyond costume. And
I know, right?
All black with just the red. It's very, ninja-like. Yeah, I guess you could do that, but it's not Batman anymore. It's, who is it, McGinnis, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get away with that? You think the fans would respond to that?
I think it will respond to that because, like I said, they would never let me or anybody do a Batman that's true to the comic book roots. So something like Batman Beyond, it's not really Batman, so I guess they would give you more leeway to get away with things. So you could really do something that's really just the sci-fi epic which it should be. And, I would love to do it now so I can get Clint Eastwood to play old Bruce Wayne. That'd be perfect. While the old man's still around.
I never thought of that. Nice. Yeah. What about Batman TV show nowadays? Would that work with Arrow's success?
What do you mean? Oh, you mean a live action TV show?
Yeah. You think you could do that? That's like Arrow, like Smallville. You think that would work for Batman, or is that too much?
A couple of years ago, I would have said that's too much, but seeing the production values and something like The Walking Dead for AMC, I think the technology is there where the budget can be manageable, and you can really do a legitimate Batman on TV. But it has to be for cable. It can't be for the WB, because it has to be action.
And I'm sure there's also a lot of stories of his youth, teenage years that we don't know about, training, traveling the world, learning different martial arts and stuff that they could put into a show.
Right, and, since it's TV, people don't expect it to be an Oscar winner, so you can kind of get away with getting a lesser actor, someone who actually knows martial arts. You can have a fight in those episodes. That's the way I would love to do a Batman series, where you can have it like the production values of Chinese action films, where the budget is kept really low because you're not using special effects, you're not using a lot of gunfights. You're using choreography, martial arts choreography. Keep the budget very low, but it's really, really cinematic and enjoyable to watch people do that.
You can have him practice. You can have him learn his detective skills in one episode and solve crimes. You can have him learn martial arts. You can have him learn all his skills. I mean, Batman could do anything, but that takes time to develop. So you could show him learning those skills.
Anybody who watches shows like The Mentalist or Elementary or Castle knows how well detective stories work on television. And if you can add the martial arts element to it, once a week, every week, for several months in a year, you have a hit TV show there. Even if he's out of costume, it'll still be a hit TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually would be a great idea.
Well, yeah, of course. What's his name didn't have the costume, right? In Smallville, did he ever actually wear the costume?
Nope. I don't think he did, right? I never saw the final of it, but
I remember he had an S, or he had like a black shirt or something. I didn't watch the last couple of seasons, to be honest, but I'm pretty sure he never had the cape.
So he had like the Superboy costume, which was the T-shirt, right?
Yeah, something like that. And that did fine. So I don't think it's about the costume. I think it's about the character. I mean, Green Arrow right now is wearing like green in the hood and a little bit of green on the face, and he's not even called Green Arrow. It's just called Arrow. I think it's just about the character material and the action in the story.
The problem is, though, because it's Warner Brothers, they want it on the WB, so that means you have to keep it, PG-13 at best, all ages, so you can't get away with more intense stories.
But Arrow is killing dudes on his show.
Oh, he is?
He's straight up shooting dudes in the heart and stuff. Yeah, he's killing. I mean, it's not blood and stuff, but he's killing people. He's snapping necks. So it's not too kidding. I admit I'm a couple episodes behind. I've watched about 3 episodes so far, and he's straight up killing dudes.
Now that sounds promising for a Batman TV show.
So, I mean, I think it's on 8 o'clock Eastern time zone, so it's not too late. I don't know how they get away with it, I guess, because no blood.
I'm surprised they haven't done it yet, actually, to be honest with you, a Batman TV show. It sounds like a national after Smallville.
A couple of years ago, I heard they were going to do a Robin, Grayson, I forgot what it's called, the Graysons or something. When they were in the circus, I guess it was going to show them turning to Robin, but I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that show was going to focus on them in the time in the circus. I thought that was stupid. It wanted to be like Smallville, like before he had the costume. But in the case of Dick Grayson, that's before he meets Batman then. So all you're doing is him being in the circus.
Yeah, I don't understand how he can get a shot, but Batman can't. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, Batman. I don't know. Warner Brothers seems to have the shackles on tight on Batman, so maybe you have to settle for a Nightwing TV show.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that would still be cool. And actually, that costume might work better on screen than the cape and the cowl, especially for
Yeah.
TV stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Warner Brothers, fans to start writing letters and to send them out. Great, that's it. Nightwing, the TV show. Let's get it done.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Cool.
So,
you're not gonna ask me? You're not gonna ask me?
Oh yeah, what would you want to work on? First for film, then give me one for television.
Well, you know I'm gonna say Deadpool, but I'm gonna trick you. I'm gonna say Weapon X, because Deadpool is part of Weapon X. I would have Wolverine, Sabretooth, Deadpool, the whole Weapon X cast. Spend half the movie of them, being tortured, trained, becoming all these special agents, super weapons, and then have Wolverine escape maybe halfway through the movie, and they have to track it down, and then maybe they meet up with Omega Red, and since he can affect other healing factors, they have to team up to beat him. They team up, they beat him, and Logan goes away at the end. So that would set up, Sabretooth movies, set up Deadpool movies, set up future Wolverine movies. I mean, this Wolverine movie, Wolverine Origins, they spend like 5 minutes inside of Weapon X. So,
the best part of his history, and they spent 5 minutes in Weapon X.
I mean, all his rage stems from the torture they put him through. I mean, the classic comic with Barry Windsor Smith, they made him sleep outside in the snow, they cut him open, they held him open with clamps so he wouldn't heal, they burned him, and they didn't show any of that.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
What about for TV?
TV is tricky. I don't know why they can't do like a Spider-Man. I'm thinking maybe Daredevil for Marvel. Something like Daredevil or maybe like Iron Fist. Iron Fist would be like a kung fu. And he's not too well known. And you could have him team up with Power Man to deal with like street crimes and stuff. Or something like Daredevil. He could be a lawyer in the daytime, law and order. And at nighttime he's like a Batman.
Yeah.
And then you could maybe have that crossover with the S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. They could try to hunt down Daredevil, find out what he's about, make sure he's a good guy, stuff like that. I think those two are pretty good. TV show, you can't really show too much powers and stuff.
That's why I think after what you mentioned, Deadpool, I think that would make a great TV show. Looking at shows like 24 or The Unit, you put him on HBO as a mercenary in Weapon X, that would be awesome.
Yeah, but they can't even get his movie straight. I don't know if he's going to be on TV.
I think TV would be easier for them to pull off, honestly. Because the movies, it's all that money, all that promotion, and I think that's what scares them off.
Yeah, that's
plus,
what I would take.
Yeah, plus you get to pick a whole new actor for it. You don't have to bring in Ryan Reynolds, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy about Ryan Reynolds.
I think he's good and funny, but I think he's a pretty ass dude to be wearing a mask and be all burnt up as Deadpool. You don't need to hire somebody that looks like him. You know what I'm saying?
That has been women's complaint. Yeah, he's the sexiest man alive. What are you gonna do, burning his skin off?
No, I didn't say all that. I'm just saying I'd use him for something else. You already have him as Green Lantern. He's Deadpool. He's gonna be this. He's gonna be Highlander. Get somebody else.
Yeah, but that's the issue. Women complain that you can't hide him because he's pretty. Well, fine, don't hire him.
Mm-hmm.
We need an actor in there who has the sense of humor to pull it off, and we don't have to worry about putting the makeup on him to make him look like Spawn because he's all burned up.
Yeah, you know who would be good in the costume is the guy who plays fake guys at Darth Maul, Ray Park. As far as the physicality and the martial arts, I don't know how good an actor he is, but as far as when Deadpool's in costume, I think he would be able to pull it off. He also played Toad in the original X-Men movie.
Yeah, I remember that. There's man, you know what would be cool? Since we're talking about this, and they probably won't be able to do a live-action TV show because, I don't know, people are touchy about doing whole superhero TV shows with live-action. How about at least giving us some direct-to-DVD animated movies about Deadpool? That'd be great.
Oh, yeah. He was a star in that Hulkverse. They had the Hulkverse Wolverine. Deadpool was a star in that.
That was so much better than the Wolverine movie. It's not even funny.
He was a star. Yeah, he would shine. Marvel's actually slacking on the movie. That's the one thing I give to DC and Warner Brothers is their animated movies.
That's about the only thing they get right, yeah.
They have that one coming out based on the the Frank Miller, the Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got that coming out in animated form.
Yeah. They should get into that. I mean, a Deadpool animated movie would be really cool. And The main reason I would want to do it is because they get away with more action that way because they don't care about the rating, and when they do that, directed, to DVD releases.
Yeah,
and plus they could hire the guy that showed up to promote the Deadpool game at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Did you see that video that I showed you on YouTube about the Deadpool guy at Comic-Con?
Mhm.
Yeah, he was funny. Put his voice on Deadpool in the animated film, and I'm sold, man. I'm sold.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's it for today's episode. Hope you guys all enjoy this. I know a lot of you listen to podcasts just to get a little distracted when you're doing work, so hopefully, we did it for you. And we'll be back next time with Tom McFarlane, who's coming in for your interview.
Definitely. And until then, read some comics.
That's right. Read some comics and start stalking some DC executives because we need a Dick Grayson TV show now. Nightwing. Let's do it. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Later.